So Rashana couldn't make it. I don't know why she couldn't make it.
You do know Rashana?
I'll see. Doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay.
Have you guys got a chance to look at like the kind of like basic questions that I outlined?
Yeah, we did. We saw them.
All right. So
Are we?
usually more come from the conversation, but I kind of want to give you guys a starting point of what we're going to talk about, so you're not blind.
That's good. And you do video now too, don't you?
Yes.
I gotta look like I got some sense.
Oh man.
How's it been with you?
Pretty good. Busy, good. A lot of moving pieces. So just trying to kind of wrangle in the moving pieces. Different things at different stages. So it's like we have vacant units, we have units that are finished that need to be filled, we have units that need to be rehabbed. So it's a lot of different stages of the process on different doors.
Yep. That's good. Always a moving assembly line, right?
Right. I never looked at it like that.
Good.
Hey, Michaela.
Yes, we should be ready to get started. It's got to be. What time is it over there?
8:30 or 8:38.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. It's funny because when you guys said we're going to push it back 30 minutes, I'd actually just kind of woken up. So it kind of worked out.
Okay. Yeah. I felt bad. We were running behind. Like, let's just push it instead of trying to. We got to our office and we're ready to go at 11. But I figured it'd be easier just to go ahead and get ourselves settled, grab a coffee,
Right.
be ready to go.
Yep.
Yeah. Come again? All
right, I'm sorry.
Hey, kiddo.
Oh, hey, baby. You hear me calling? Oh, I just wanted to let you know we're gonna do this thing, so we're gonna do video. Why are you crying? What's the matter?
All right. Let me see if she can come on. Give me 1 second.
No problem. Still getting Rashana.
my other phone go?
Hey, we had to get our charger.
Oh, no worries.
Take care of Michaela.
What's the plan? So do you want to do it without Rashawn? Or you want to wait? I know that's kind of your new thing. I forgot that Rashawn is like consistently there. So like to not do it.
We can wait or push it
No,
back.
I don't want to push it back a whole another week.
Yeah.
So,
No. Let's definitely do it today. But we're in the office all day today. Up to you.
We're just back on work today.
Let me see. No, I think.
Let me just check our schedule.
Hold on. All
right.
Let's do it. No response from her yet, and so
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the Thai Capital Millionaire Podcast, episode 133. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Thai Millionaire, also known as partner with Millie, founder and director of the Thai Capital Millionaire Podcast, Thai Capital Investment Club, Thai Capital Acquisitions, Thai Capital Everything. Today we have a special guest, Charm City Buyers, back for the third time. So welcome back to the show, guys.
What up? Thanks for having us.
So a lot, I'm sure, has changed and grown for you guys since the last time you were on the show. So we wanted to kind of bring you in and talk about an update. So yeah, what's been new?
Man, it's been hectic, running around crazy, everything in different phases. Enjoying it and having a lot of fun. I'm not sure, when was the last time we were, God, it had to be months ago.
It's been a long time. So we, I know you guys are continuing, episode 133 sounds like crazy. So for those who probably don't know us or aren't familiar with us, we're Charm City Buyers out of Baltimore, Maryland. We are really big on setting a foundation of rentals and then moving into a bigger role of community development through redeveloping real estate, getting more involved in kind of the community. So we think of ourselves not just as investors, but developers, and move accordingly.
Yeah, community wealth builders. That's kind of what we like to call ourselves, not only for ourselves, but for others who work with us and follow us.
Yeah, so we're all about, so right now we have about 20, a little bit more, but about 20 rental units by the time we were 30, bought back the block, quote unquote, in Baltimore, and then have continued to build on that foundation and really, like Flo said, help other people, build wealth through real estate, whether that means working with us through, next gen mentorships, whatever, or just like ride with us through our community development and really impact, the communities in which we serve, which is the neighborhoods that we invest in.
Yeah, and so you guys are out of Baltimore, and can you kind of explain why you guys invest in Baltimore, why you have decided to stay in Baltimore?
Baltimore, great question. Why Baltimore? Why not Baltimore? Now is the time for Baltimore to rise again.
Right.
We're a great city, and we're going through this renaissance, just like a lot of major cities. But the things that are happening in Baltimore are just incredible.
Yeah, so what's funny is you can watch the news, right? Or you can hear about Baltimore. You could be in Baltimore. So Khalil's born and raised in Baltimore.
Yep.
I kind of moved here with him, obviously, but it didn't take long for me, kind of being from the outside looking in, to fall in love with what Baltimore is, what it's all about, figuring out how much culture and love here. And there's like a vibe, right? Like Baltimore is really a vibe. And so, there's challenges in Baltimore like there is anywhere else, when we think about wealth gap and what does that do for poverty and crime and all those types of things. But being on kind of both sides of the coin, right, understanding the challenges of Baltimore, but being part of what's making Baltimore this huge opportunity for growth, for wealth, for just building is crazy. There's so much money being spent here on redevelopment at the same time that we just hit a high for crime and murders in the city. Like, there's this book called The Tale of Two Cities about Baltimore, and that's where we are in like the utmost degree. So we have the highest number of murders in Baltimore last year, at the same time that there are literally hundreds of millions, billions of dollars being spent to redevelop Baltimore at the exact same time. So what we're all about is making sure people understand that there are two sides to that coin, and it's important that for us as people who love Baltimore, love the hood, like all of that, that we're adding value and making sure that as this change occurs, we're a part of that change and we're able to take advantage of it instead of looking back, blinking and like, oh shit, what happened to Baltimore? Like we did in DC, which is less than an hour away. And so you can't, like, it would be such a disservice to ourselves and future generations of ourselves to let the same thing that happened in DC happen in Baltimore. So that's where we're at.
Yeah. So you guys have a YouTube channel. What inspired the YouTube channel?
So the YouTube channel was all about kind of taking some information, like sharing more information, making sure that people are constantly learning, right? There's tons of ways to learn real estate for free, right? And so we wanted to get on YouTube, share more, kind of extend the audience a little bit and share, how much opportunity there is in real estate beyond just the Instagram, right? So Instagram works, doesn't work, whatever, right? So we want to make sure that we're able to connect with more people and share, again, that Baltimore has a lot to offer.
Yeah, I think it was like, it's great to be able to impact lives, and that's what we're all about, whether that's our tenants, buyers, or people aspiring to do what we do and what you do. And in looking at kind of the audience and the demographics, we looked at where we are and where we could be. And YouTube is the next logical step. It makes sense. We got to keep impacting people and get our faces out there.
Yeah. So I know last time we spoke, we were talking about opportunity zones, and Khalil mentioned that although you guys have a lot of the rental properties, that you still are working a job in like a development company.
Yeah, absolutely. So a developer was very interested in starting their own for sale housing portfolio, and they found us and found me and said, you know what, we want you to help out. I'm like, all right, well, let's see what kind of agreement we can come up with, and it's working out so far. Yeah,
so that is all about from us transitioning from kind of being investors to learning how some of the big dogs are doing it, right? The people who are investing all over the country, millions of dollars, working with government money and grants and all of these other things, like how do we do that? Which is really, really cool, because it really shifted some of the things that we did last year, some things that we're doing this year, to be able to leverage some of the things that he's learning working with this other organization and implementing it for us and for our mentees and next gen and all that.
Yeah, what was dope is that Kiara and I were both kind of on our own for about 9 months or so before this even happened, and we were steady growing, steady doing our thing, and then we saw this opportunity and said, you know what, maybe it could be cool to be a little more plugged in to the future and expedite some things on our own, Charm City buyers a little faster.
So is that what inspired you guys to start looking at those commercial properties? I know you guys are taking a lot of tours and looking at a bunch of different like large scale deals. What happened with those?
Absolutely. So in looking at these kind of larger strategic developments, 5-10 year projects, we were looking at them and saying, you know what, this is absolutely the next step, like 100 unit multi, 200 unit multi, affordable housing, opportunity zones, grant programs, getting into these next level of developments where this is where the real money funnels and how true community development happens. Retail, placemaking, all these different types of things where you can establish and create community.
Right. And what's even better is that we're able to, so we've done those same exact tours with NextGen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not only showing and doing, learning what's happening, figuring out how we can do it, but also exposing folks to new things. And so it's important as we're investing in Baltimore, we know what's happening, we know what money's being spent and where, because a lot of times when these commercial dollars are being spent, the residential development follows. So it kind of puts us in a really great position to know what's happening, how it's happening, share that with other people, and then make stuff pop up for ourselves. So
I mean,
it's really dope.
Being in the trenches on the front line with all this type of stuff happening, it directly translates to our next gen. I mean, they get the information first. They get the information firsthand. They join us on these tours. They join us in these community developments. It's powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you've mentioned NextGen a few times. Can you explain to people what NextGen is?
Yeah, so NextGen is our family, right? It's our mentorship program. It's our coaching program where we are really creating the next generation of Charm City buyers, right? The whole point of NextGen is to see what I did there. No, so we the whole point of NextGen is to kind of set the foundation, kind of make sure that folks know what they're doing, they're investing on their own, they're building their own wealth. But the goal really is for NextGen to be able to partner and do larger deals for ourselves. That's always been, or with us. And so that's always been the goal. And so as we have always continued to grow and learn new things and do new things, it always translates back into sharing with our NextGen folks on kind of how to move and what's happening and how to do things better and smarter than we did before we knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So so NextGen is our mentorship program. That is like our baby. That's where we spend tons of our time. That's where we send all the deals. That's where we're like, taking out boots on the ground with us and doing tours and having conversations behind the scenes. So when we're at boardroom tables and having conversations about what's happening in Baltimore over the next 5 to 10 years, they're getting the notes, right? So it's dope.
Yeah, what's dope about NextGen compared to like a lot of other programs is that we're actively doing it, and we're so plugged in and specific that we can share this information directly and immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fun. We have a good time. They're definitely family, so
yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
No question. They get Kiara's phone number. Like it's a true collaborative effort. We've got 70, 80 people. What's the goal for NextGen?
Yeah, no, 2020, our goal with NextGen and our mentees is that we're doing 220 units this year. And so we have some super big goals. We're super excited about them and kind of growing, even how we do a lot and we share a lot and we spend a lot of time with them, but we're looking to expand that even more this year to make sure we can hit this 2020 goal of 220 units. So it's exciting. It's a lot going on.
I think that's cool because, as you guys are saying, there's a lot of money being poured into Baltimore. And it's not just one guy doing it. It's a bunch of people making a concerted effort into building up these areas. And so you guys can do that with your bunch of people. You can build it.
Yeah. And that's where it all came about, too. It was like, Baltimore, there's so much opportunity. A lot of people don't know it or don't see it. And that's kind of how even our Instagram was born, right? Let's share the opportunity in Baltimore. Let's share what people can do. But beyond that, we can't buy up every house on our own.
Right.
And so let's make sure people have the tools, the resources, and the knowledge to do it on their own, and then eventually do it together collaboratively. Because collaboration over competition all day.
Absolutely, all day, every day. It's funny you mentioned that. We've talked to developers who've been in the game for 30, 40, 50 years, and they're saying the exact same thing. This is the most activity they've seen in Baltimore ever. I mean, they are impressed with north, south, east, west, central, nonprofit, for-profit. It's everywhere. There's so much development happening in Baltimore that now is absolutely the time. Circling back to your previous question.
So it seems like that's why you guys have stayed, because the opportunity is there. All of the vacant homes, of course, there's the problems, but problems mean opportunity. And so that allows you to come in and buy multiple doors and buy the 220 units. Because if you're looking in areas like maybe Los Angeles or New York or Miami or these hot spots, there might not be that opportunity to do things that big. So it's kind of like just kind of staring you in the face. It makes sense.
Exactly. And not only that, so there's tons of opportunity, but the numbers still make sense, right? There's still You're still able to buy property at a really great rate. The rental rates are really high in Baltimore, so you're able to get that ROI, that return on your investment, really well. And then as things are changing, you're getting the appreciation. Like it just makes sense. Like Baltimore makes sense when you take all the fluff and all the other stuff, all the other conversations out. It just makes sense.
And then it's still really close to DC too. So do you have a lot of people that commute into the DC area to go to work?
Yeah, you do. You see that a lot. There's a 30-minute train from Baltimore to DC. So a lot of times it's easier to live in Baltimore and commute to DC. Nobody can afford DC. DC is ridiculous. And so it logically makes sense. And then you have a lot of conversations about like these maglev trains and all this stuff that they're talking about putting in and around Baltimore and connecting DC to New York and all of these things. And so it's a natural transition. We started to see people move into Baltimore to get back and forth to work from Baltimore maybe like 2 or 3 years ago that started. So now people are buying and working in DC and not just renting. And it's really, really something I think is going to continue because it just makes sense when you put together not only the distance between DC and Baltimore, but all the value you get in buying in Baltimore. There's so many incentives and you get all this free money to buy here. Like, why not buy a house that's so much cheaper? You get a whole lot more house and you're able to use free money to do it.
Yeah, Penn Station, Amtrak is doing a big development of the Penn Station here in Baltimore. And that, it connects us to DC, to Philly, to New York. So for Amtrak to be dumping money and in the city and state and federal to be putting money into this development, it obviously means something. Our most recent buyer actually came from, he works in DC. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he works in DC. So that just shows you right there that people are seriously looking at Baltimore to commute to work from DC.
Mm-hmm.
Are you guys seeing other things pop up to kind of, I guess, symbolize that there's being more development, like the Starbucks, the Whole Foods, the Chick-fil-A's, things like that?
For sure. There's tons. Don't get it twisted. There are more than a few Starbucks in Baltimore City. But yeah, you see a ton of things like those little markers of change popping up, the bike lanes, like all those types of things are everywhere. You ride your little bike past the project like everybody else.
Yep. Infrastructure being laid, brand new gas lines and water lines, lines all over the place. You see the trains going up and where other developments are happening. Yeah, we see all the markers all the time. There's a lot of movement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we haven't talked about opportunity zones in a while. Can we get an opportunity zone update? I know there's been a lot of talk, a lot of conversation about what's going on. How are we seeing it actually come to play? How are we seeing it actually being applied to the market?
Yeah, so in the beginning, opportunity zones were going to be this huge thing that we're going to redevelop all these low-income census tracts. Since its formation, there's been a lot of questions and trying to figure out the politics behind it, also the policies behind it and how it's going to work, and a lot of skepticism. People are seeing it like, is it actually going to work? Is it going to unfold? Where we've seen it mostly be applicable is that people are layering other incentives on top of the Opportunity Zone program. What do I mean? So, for example, if there's a historic rehab program or an affordable housing program or all these different incentives, homeless housing, they will say, okay, if you're in an Opportunity Zone, we'll step up what we already offer by adding an additional 5% incentive or 10% incentive, or we'll prioritize opportunity zones more because they want to layer on top of what's already happening. If the federal government is prioritizing opportunity zones, they want to make sure they're prioritizing these areas also, cities and states, by providing these additional incentives. So that's what we're seeing mostly. There are opportunity zone funds forming. There are people directly investing in the opportunity zone program to take advantage of that 10-year no taxes. But by and large, it's cities and states saying, okay, we've got this program. We're gonna increase what we offer so that we can continue to prioritize these areas.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of skepticism with opportunity zones because people thought that it was just going to be used to displace the current residents. But the way you're saying, if you can layer different incentives like homeless housing or low-income housing and those different types of tax credits and incentives, it might actually kind of double down on what people want, as opposed to displacing people.
Yeah, so like the name of the game a lot of times is free money. So we talk about OPM all the time, but as we've kind of grown, there's this whole other ball game around free money. And so the people who are taking advantage of opportunity zone programs and the funds, they know and understand the value of grants and tax credits and how to take this whole other level of OPM and really optimize their dollar. And so if you're able to take advantage of things that are already happening from a state or federal level when it comes to quote unquote free money and use the opportunity zone funds to take advantage of it, you're just going to optimize your money. And that's what the opportunity zone program is all about, is to make sure that the people who got the dough keep the dough and make it last that much longer. And so I think what we'll see first is a lot of large commercial development deals using opportunity zone money. So we've already seen it in DC. Some of the like big urban areas are seeing opportunity zone projects come up, and they're usually big like strip malls. They are huge apartment buildings, things of that nature. A lot of times things that have already almost been in the works, but now they're able to take advantage of the opportunity zone program. So in 2020, now that OZ has kind of been nailed down, or really has been nailed down that much more, I think now we'll start to see it being used a little bit more by quote unquote regular people. And so not $1 billion opportunity zone funds, but maybe, you know, a few $100,000, you know, maybe $1 million opportunity zones, and see them take down individual houses more so than just like the large, you know, sky rises.
So opportunity zone funds, at first, it seemed like people were going to use their own individual capital gains to invest. But now people are partnering with other people who have capital gains, putting those monies together, and then going out there and applying that towards deals. It's interesting because it sounded like you kind of have to know where the city wants to go. And if you know where the city wants to go, then you can invest alongside of that so you can get the free money.
Exactly.
Yeah, you follow the money.
You follow the money. That's what we tell our folks all the time. You got to follow the money. And the best way to follow the money is to be tuned in. So you're tuned in because you have a seat at the table, and you're part of the conversations, where a lot of times, you know, Khalil or myself are at the table for some of the projects here in Baltimore. Or you are kind of, you know, you pulling up a chair kind of from afar. Maybe that's being involved in your community association meetings. Maybe that means, you know, making sure you're going to community meetings. Maybe that means that you are just opening up the newspaper, right? They always say the things that you really need to know is in a newspaper. I think that's still 100% true. A lot of times you find about, you know, the newest development deals in the newspaper. So open it up, read, skim through, do what you got to do. But you have to stay tuned to what's happening and what's coming, because usually it takes a few years to get things underway. So pay attention.
I feel like that's the distinction between being an investor and a developer, where an investor looks at the numbers. Does this deal make sense? The developer looks at everything. And you guys made that distinction. So have you guys always been developers, or have you guys transitioned into being developers recently?
That's a really good question.
That is a good question.
You know, I think we've always at heart been developers.
Yeah, and really focus on what's happening overall, like what's happening around us. Or around different areas, and then buying properties in areas that we thought were going to be impacted. So one of the first properties that we bought in Baltimore was actually between an area called, it wasn't too far from this area called Patterson Park, and it wasn't too far from Johns Hopkins. And this was before really Hopkins started to buy up all of Baltimore, really, and they had just kind of started, but they hadn't done it as much as they have now. Those who are from Baltimore or know Baltimore understand exactly what I'm talking about. And so we bought this house, and we said, well, you know what, Patterson Park has a lot going for it. We think that area is going to grow as far as development, and people are going to keep buying. We're like, Johns Hopkins probably going to keep buying the city. And eventually we ended up in the middle, and that property increased in value from what we bought it for like $25,000. And then within 3 to 4 years, houses in that same area were selling for $175,000. So like and it's not about speculation, because I think speculation can be a dangerous word in this business, but it's just about understanding how things work, understanding urban planning, like really getting, and you're right, like you get outside of this investor, like this one house, these 3 comps and all of that, but really thinking about urban planning. How do things work? What are the priorities of the city? What are the priorities of the state? And how does that impact in the community?
What's the priorities of the community?
Most specifically, and most importantly, because nothing happens without the sign up of the community association. And so how do you kind of take all those priorities and really think through where it makes sense for you to spend your dollar? So yeah, I think we kind of had like the inclinations of that early on, and then as we've gone and grown, we've learned more so that we could do things better, smarter, and faster.
Yeah, we finally figured out what the word was. We was talking about investors for a long time, and they were renters and holders, and wait a second, developer. Okay, that's the word.
But it's true. It's true. It's different.
So how does somebody who might be just investing in single family homes or just investing on a small level get to that point where they can start thinking at the developer level?
I think it's a intentional decision. By all means, you can continue being an investor, and a lot of people are, and they just focus on what they focus on, right? Flipping houses. And there's a space for that. It's a benefit to the community. You remove blight, you help people find homes, you beautify areas. I mean, there's absolutely a place for it. But if you want to do larger, impactful work, that's more mission aligned, that's more intentional with providing retail and other services, then this is the space that you start to move into.
Right. It's about education, and not only just learning like what it is, but being willing to spend the time to learn what's happening, right? And spend the time to read and, be up on what's in the newspapers and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think you just gotta put the time in.
Yeah. So it's about mostly like kind of doing the boring stuff sometimes.
Right. And being willing to, and understanding that, you do one house and then you have profit for that one house, right? When you're doing the development, you kind of have to look at the overall. You might not make as much as you would have if you're going one off at the beginning when you're doing like a larger project. You kind of have to be willing to be much more long-term, because in the short term, the numbers might not look the same, if that makes sense. You really have to be, like Phil said, mission aligned to be able to make some of those early sacrifices for that long-term gain.
Yeah, 100%. So 2020, what does that look like for you guys? What's the plan?
2020 is crazy. So we have the 220 units for 2020 with Next Gen Auto Mentees. So that's definitely a big piece of that, because it's around like that community building, and it'll align with things that we're working on anyway.
And with that comes a lot of work in itself, right?
Yeah.
We've got to step up our wholesale game. We've got to step up the properties that we find, whether it's vacant land or other properties. We've got to infiltrate different areas and learn about different areas. It's a lot of work that goes into that goal on its own.
Right. And more importantly, like making sure that people have the resources and tools to be successful. So making sure that we're bringing in the right partners and the right people to the table to add value to all of our mentees. But it's also through this year, it's going to be a lot of kind of taking some of the things that even we've learned on a next level kind of playing field and implement, right? So whether that means getting more access to grants and working with nonprofits. We work with different community associations, different organizations, really looking to redevelop Baltimore, and so continue to be part of those conversations and having a seat at the table. I think we've kind of transitioned from being kind of all about just us to thinking broadly and really trying to impact other people, and that therefore continue to push us forward as well.
And that's a really good point. Investor is great again, but the transition from investor to developer is very much you're doing it versus you're just a cog on a giant wheel, right? And you're part of a system that's creating this long-term sustainable change for a city. I don't know why I went back there, but it made me think.
So how do you guys get to 220? You said wholesaling. You're probably talking to more lenders. You're probably talking to more contractors, that kind of stuff. It's like 10x there.
It is. It definitely is. So wholesaling is just kind of a small piece, right? So that's making sure that we are constantly providing access to deals beyond just showing people how to do it themselves. We're also providing access to deals that we come across or other people come across more intentionally. So typically it just happens unintentionally. We'll be a little bit more intentional about that this year to help keep that pipeline growing. it also includes, yes, lenders. And so we've built relationships with financing partners that also know and understand NextGen, have bought into what we're looking to do with that group. And so through our relationships with financiers and lenders and folks, our NextGen has gained access to folks as well, which is really great for them. And again, provides access and resources to be able to make 220 a possibility. So NextGen is traditionally 12 weeks. Anyone who's in NextGen will be like, yeah, they'll like roll their eyes because we don't really put anybody out. But those who have kind of gone through and have bought their houses, they're doing well, right? They're kind of in that whole investor sphere. We're pulling them along with us on the developer track. And so we have this kind of new thing that we haven't talked about broadly outside of NextGen, but we have this new thing. We've called it phase 2. I don't know if we'll come up with a better name for it, but it kind of brings them along our journey of the development. And so it helps them transition from that investor sphere into development. And so they are really on this journey with us as we are working with, whether it's, a community association, a neighborhood, a nonprofit, for-profit, whatever it is, these larger development projects that we're a part of, they end up being part of it as well, because they get the insight on what's happening, get a little insider information sometimes, and be able to guide them through so that they can, again, be able to work with us on projects as the whole. We're kind of getting back to why. Like, why did we start NextGen? Well, it's to be able to partner with folks and really bring them along on the journey. And so that's what phase 2 is all about as well. So we'll be doing more with them through 2020. Taking over Baltimore just a little bit.
So for that initiative to be as successful as we plan and we're manifesting it for it to be, we've taken our geographic scope and we're narrowing it down, right? So we're targeting specific areas and saying this is where we will galvanize our efforts. This is where we will all focus and concentrate. This is where our relationships will be. So it's it's all hands on deck effort. Is that
area going to be around you guys' block, or is it a different area?
It's going to be in the city of Baltimore. That's the answer I have been trained to give.
Oh. So to kind of, I guess, take a step back, what would you guys' biggest success of 2019?
Oh, that's a good question.
I think the biggest success of 2019,
I would say growing the vision personally. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're excited. Go ahead.
Yeah, all right. I would say growing the vision. I think when we started, for me, it was just, all right, let's just get some rental properties. That way we can live off cash flow and do whatever we want. And then we got to a place where our income exceeded our expenses by enough to maintain our lifestyle. It was like, all right, well, now let's try some flips. And then we did that. And it was like, okay, well, what's next, right? Mm-hmm. We're young, we're hungry, we're ambitious. We want to keep teaching people. So then we got into this new space, and now we're growing the vision even broader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I think that there's been so many things going on. Like even him going backwards a little bit, not even going backwards, because kind of taking one step back to take 3 steps forward.
It's like a rubber band. I did like, and I'm like, oh.
So doing that was, you made me lose my mind like completely.
I'm a big kid at heart.
Oh my God.
Have fun.
So taking that choice to go work with the development group, like we were in a place where we were just gonna coast, right? We were just gonna chill. We had our properties and just chill. But we kind of had to really refocus and think about, all right, well, if I stop now and quote unquote retire, I'm 29, 30 years old. Like what am I supposed to do for the next 60, 70 years? And some people that sounds really, really cool, but it's real. Like we knew that there was more that we could offer. And so I think through 2019, we got a chance to explore what those things could be. And I think 2020 is going to be seeing us more put things into action and maybe share a little bit more. So we share a limited amount because we do a lot, but I think it's just because, we're working, right? You want to get stuff done and show people what you did and not tell them what you're doing. But I think through 2020, we're going to share that much more and try to just be really transparent and, again, show people what the opportunities and the what could happen. We're still early 30s, right? There's still a lot left in the tank. So
Yeah.
For sure.
see how to explore that a little bit.
To whom much is given, much is expected, right? I think that's still a very true saying. And not that we've been given more than anybody else, or not that we are any special or anything like that. But I think we both recognize that we've worked hard, we've stayed focused, and we got to keep paying it forward for the culture.
Yeah, so we'll see. Y'all see us a little bit more maybe in 2019.
Yeah, I like the idea of working to learn as opposed to working to earn. So you didn't really need the money, but you got the knowledge and you got that inside knowledge. You got to see it from because it's one thing to see what somebody's doing. It's another to see how they're doing it. So I think that was huge as you guys applied it to your business. What is the biggest thing you learned in 2019?
The biggest thing we've learned in 2019, that when you think you're at your max, you're not. When you think you're at your max, you're not. So when you think there's nothing left in the tank, for somehow, some way, there's a spare tank in there somewhere.
Biggest learning of 2019, I would say that we are much stronger together than we are apart. I think that's the biggest thing, biggest learning. Kiara can do, I can do, but we can do 5 times by working together.
Yeah, I think that's in the Bible somewhere. Yeah. What are some tips you guys have for people looking to invest in Baltimore?
Turn off the news and open up a newspaper.
Nice. That's a bar right there. Dang, that's a meme. I love it.
Seriously, the business section, if you take a look at the Baltimore Business Journal and the Sun paper and a few other publications, you can take a look and see exactly what's happening and where it's happening.
And surround yourself with people who are either where you want, they're on the same level as you, right? They want to go where you want to go, or surround yourself with people who are where you want to be, right? Let's kind of shed off some of those folks that are holding us back and really focus on getting to where we want to go. So whether that means, you get yourself in a room, come to, we do Mobilize Baltimore quarterly, right? If you're in Baltimore, come link with us, right? We have the community that we're building is strong and it's fun, and we're getting stuff done, right? So come out, link with us. If you don't know where to start, a lot of times we have, there's tons of ways to get connected with us and figure it out, because what's happening in Baltimore, people here need to take part in what's coming.
Yeah. What was the biggest success that you've seen come out of Next Gen?
The biggest success, a lot of people have done a lot of really, really dope stuff and buying their properties, and they have tenants and they're building cash flow and all of that. I think that so it's a family and they call us mom and dad, right? You're not supposed to have any secrets. I don't want anybody to be pissed off at us. But we have folks in Next Gen who are doing large projects, who are really doing large scale rehab. They have building a portfolio. Their portfolio might be larger than ours by the end of the year, as far as rentals specifically. So we've had quite a bit of success, and I think what's great about Next Gen though is that we can look across all the cohorts and look, at the folks who have joined Next Gen over the last. I think we've done it maybe for a year and a half or so. A strong percentage of them have properties. People are taking action. They're building their portfolios. One of the things that I want to do this year is to start tallying up how much Next Gen makes a month, right? And really talk about what income we're bringing and how much, what's the, the wealth of Next Gen, right? Let's take it all together and as a family and see what we're doing. Because I think it's really, really monumental. I think it's different than what a lot of other people are doing. Because it's really not just about a program, this thing that you pay for, but it's about really community and getting stuff done. So it's a long way to not give you the specific answer, but to say that Next Gen's really, they're doing it. They're getting it done. Yeah. They're making money. They're bringing in rental income and, putting themselves on a path to success.
Nice. Cool. So I'm going to ask the final questions, and I'll just fire those off.
Yep.
Who is somebody, I think I've asked you guys this question a million times, but maybe it's changed, maybe it hasn't changed. Who is somebody you look up to and why?
Somebody I look up to and why? Good question.
Yeah, you gotta pitch back to me. What do I look up to? I think that for me, the way, and I don't know how I answered it before, because I'm sure you have answered before, but for me, I usually try to take the best of multiple people and
I
kind of
like it.
create like my own version, right? So
Yeah.
I think that everyone has their things that are great, and everyone has their challenges and their weaknesses. So I've always been one to just take, what works for me and leave the rest, and really, focus on those.
I think that's a tough one for me to answer, to be completely honest. I think I've taken another look at True North, and the book, and really trying to focus and make sure that I'm focused on my true north.
Mm-hmm.
And in doing that, for better or worse, it may be to a detriment. I've kind of blocked out others and gotten more focused on where I want to go, to better define kind of who I am and where I'm going. We're going down this rabbit hole right now, but that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, we're both like, I'm 30, he's 31, right? So we're both at this really great,
That's like the beginning,
like
right there.
Crisis, like, huh?
I said 30 is like the beginning of life.
Right. Yeah. You kind of like have to go through that redefining piece, and doing that while you're married with a kid and a pretty substantial business is an interesting thing. Like trying to figure out redefining who you are based on things that you've done over the last 10 years or 10 years ago is interesting. And so trying to constantly have that, find that true north, like who am I in all of this other stuff is a process. And like I said, we're still young, so I'm sure it'll change again in the next 7 to 10 years, but constantly trying to keep your eye on whatever, whatever is your true north.
What is the one like bucket list item that you have to accomplish or do before you leave this earth?
Live abroad.
Ooh, live abroad, yeah.
That's cool.
Live abroad for an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
6 months here, 6 months there, and like do it for a few years.
Yep.
That's cool. Which kind of leads to the other question is, are you guys going to be doing any traveling this year? And if so, what places are you looking forward to going to?
Absolutely. So 2019, we actually went to China.
Yeah.
So again, we don't share everything. So we were in China for a while with Michaela, which was really cool.
Beijing, Shanghai, Wuxi.
We were all over the place.
Yeah.
So that was really, really cool. And so that kind of relit the bug for traveling, which Glenn and I used to do quite often before we had a child. And then 2020, Brazil, Greece. We have a few different, Santorini. We have a few different things. Puerto Rico. We do Puerto Rico a few times a year nowadays. But so we'll be getting a couple stamps this year.
Yeah.
What's your favorite business book? What's your favorite investment book?
All right, so I read the same ones every year. At this time of year, every year I reread. I reread Think and Grow Rich. I reread 10X Rule, and there's one other one that I read, actually by Russell Simmons, about something in stillness. I can't remember the exact name.
Okay.
Power and Stillness, maybe. But I reread those 3 books every year.
I mentioned True North. Also, Leadership and Self-Deception, the Arbinger Institute. I like that book a lot. I think it's all about trying to take out the negative vision that you have about other people, and understanding why it's there and how it's there, and increasing your leadership skills by removing it.
Yeah. Do you notice when you read a book multiple times, you pull out different things?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the exact same words, right?
Yeah, it's all about perception, right? So as you grow and change, your perception changes, and then how you interpret the words in the book impacts you differently. So that's why I read those books every year, because they impacted me so much, several years ago, that each year it kind of gives me something different.
Yeah, and if you're into this type of thing, like using a specific highlighter color or pen color, and then the next year using a different one just to see what jumps out to you this time, it's pretty fun.
It. That's cool. What sets apart successful Baltimore investors from those who give up, fail, or never get started?
I think in Baltimore, you have to really be focused on like, you got to know what you're doing, right? And you have to know that over time, you're going to win, right? You have to go through those ups and downs in Baltimore like you would anywhere else. But I think it's really important that you are realistic in your goals, that you know in Baltimore, you got to know the hood, you got to know where you're at, so you know what you're doing. But it's really about being realistic about what you're setting out to do and not be going off of what some guru or what you saw on TV or heard from someone else. You have to really be, true and honest with what it is you're trying to accomplish and how you're going to get it done.
I think what sets apart a successful investor in Baltimore is plugging in. We're a between 500,000 and 550,000 person city, very small, and it gets even smaller once you get into these very niche specific areas, like real estate investing, specifically community development, specifically a specific neighborhood. And by plugging in, you can increase your chances of success. By going at it alone, it's really tough, and you're setting yourself up for failure between permits and new regulations and laws, and just where different activities are happening. You gotta plug in.
You gotta know who's who and what's what. For sure.
So in regards to permits, are there people in like the office up there, they just know you by face? They're like, hey, what's going on? Like these.
It's funny, like you walk into a room, like we went to a party not that long ago and we were like dancing with city councilmen and the mayor was there, we were, like hanging out, like, you gotta be plugged in, right? We're getting people to drink with us, but they were like very substantial in Baltimore city politics. So you have to just like be plugged in and build relationships. It's all about who you know, and then through that, as things come up, it's funny because your name gets thrown in a hat in rooms that you didn't even know existed, and so then different things pop up, and people are talking about, let's get Charm City buyers or get NextGen to do X, Y, and Z. Like that's an amazing place to be, and I think through 2020 we're gonna see what that looks like and means that much more, and have to level up to meet the demand.
We'll have to level up, no question about it. Like there's no question about it. Right? Like once NextGen started to grow organically on its own, people were like, hey, I want to do this, and we allowed it, and then other people are starting to throw out our name in different rooms. Like, okay, we've got to level up and put some more control around it, make sure that we're guiding it, right? We don't want to limit it, but we want to make sure that we're putting the guardrails and leading from behind and make sure that it's growing in the path that everybody wants it to go.
Yeah. What's dope about you guys' story is you built the foundation first of rental properties. So it's like, now that you're doing all these great things, worst case scenario, you fall on a bunch of passive incomes. So you guys are good.
That's the way we designed it and the way we wanted to go with it. We were very risk adverse in the beginning. Not very, I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, we weren't risk adverse at all.
Risk adverse at all. But it was a risk adverse strategy. And then as we kind of put that foundation in place, we can take more risky actions.
What is something that people don't know about Charm City buyers that they would find interesting?
It's probably a lot.
I'm sure it's a lot.
I think that was pretty interesting, drinking with the city councilman. That's not interesting. Maybe I'm just that much of a nerd. What's interesting about us? I don't know.
We're normal, right?
We're normal,
we still go through our issues. We still have to work to be closer together, and we have to prioritize our marriage and our family, and we still have to do drop off and take to the bus and all those kind of normal activities. I don't know if that's interesting, but
I'm trying to think. Interesting. I said earlier you might see us more, so part of where you might see us could be on a television set near you at some point.
That'd be cool. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for coming on the show. Last question is, where can they find you? Where can they follow you? Where can they support what you have going on?
Yes, you can follow us at Charm City Buyers on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and now YouTube. So it's Charm City Buyers everywhere. We're just excited to meet new people and help give people the resources they need to be successful.
Check out our website. If you're serious about NextGen, your NextGen Accelerator, please submit the application, and we'll take a look.
Yeah, CharmCityBuyers.com.
Is next gen ongoing, or is it something that you guys kind of take in phases?
So we open it up as demand requires, which means we open it up a lot, very often in 2019. So we're constantly open for applications, and we open up the cohorts as needed.
Yeah.
I always wondered that.
Rolling applications, yeah.
Okay, cool. So we'll have that link in the show notes. Also have their links to the website and all their social media in the show notes. This is episode 133, the first episode of 2020. It's lit. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Top Millionaire, partnered with Millie, signing off. Nice.